Stephen Willis. A while ago, I remember you mentioned meeting Ron Miscavige Sr. when he gave you sales training once in the Sea Org. Did this tap into LRH Tech, or was it his pre-Scientology sales experience he used? You said he taught something along the lines that making a sales is a series of mental transactions. Sounds interesting. Care to elaborate? Yeah, Ron Miscavige Sr. came down to the PAC base and gave us briefings a couple times in preparation for doing big, huge sales drives for new releases of Scientology materials when we would do those events. You know, we talk about those events all the time and how they're sort of mind-controlling indoctrination events, but they're also sales events. I really don't talk about that much, but almost all of these events have a new release of some kind that they're selling. And the idea is that all the staff, on an all-hands basis after each event, go hog wild selling these things. So Ron Miscavige Sr., of course, having sales experience pre-Scientology and kind of knowing what he's talking about, would come and do these briefings to us. And it was funny because I was on his show when I was out in Philly, and he and I actually talked about this. And his methodology, or basically the simplicity of what he would tell us as far as doing sales, was something I still remember because I think it's working. I think it works. When I did sales, this is how I went about doing it, and it tended to work. And that was that doing a sale is a small series of agreements. You get this agreement, and then you move on to the next one, and then you move on to the next one. You don't go from here straight to the sale. The sale's here. But first you have to gradually get the person to agree to a number of things. And by having that clear in your head as to where you're trying to take the person and getting them to agree with each step along the way, you get them where you want to take them. Now, of course, this is also Cult Indoctrination 101, but it's also Sales 101. So it really, you know, in terms of cult indoctrination, a lot of that has to do with your, has to do with your intention. And what you're, what are you trying to do? And these series of agreements can be, it was never implied or told to us that we should be lying to people. That wasn't his shtick at all. So I didn't particularly get that from him. I got the lies and the distortions and the half-truths and the exaggerations that you tell people in selling them things in Scientology from L. Ron Hubbard. Because that was the, for example, I've talked about acceptable truths and how you have to tell people something that they'll accept as the truth rather than the real truth in order to, avoid a messy PR situation, or in order to get them thinking along the lines that you want them thinking, rather than giving them the whole truth and doing full disclosure, and then they can make up their own mind based on all the facts. Instead, as a salesperson, I got the idea, again, not actually from Ron Miscavige Sr., but from L. Ron Hubbard, that you lead them by the nose where you want them to go. And of course, Hubbard also had a whole lot of stuff in Scientology about controlling people. And there's this quote out there about how, you have to lie to people in order to control them. That wasn't particularly a principle that we were using in Scientology overtly. That was, that quote's kind of taken out of context when it's used, I think, in order to present this idea that Scientologists knowingly lie to people in order to control them. It's more subtle than that. Let me just put it that way. It took me years to realize that I had gotten to this place where I was lying to people all the time. It wasn't an overt thing on my part. It was, I sort of, as a salesperson, I was sold on how to do this, right? So anyway, Miscavige's, Ron Miscavige Sr.'s method was this, series of agreements. And with that, we would drill, we would practice with each other on that. And I thought that that was, pretty workable. And I ended up years later doing sales, I was a reg for the OT levels. I didn't know what was on the OT levels. I didn't know anything about them. Nor could I. I wasn't anywhere near getting onto the OT levels, but I had to sell them anyway. So I would apply this information about agreements and get people to agree that, Scientology was a good thing. L. Ron Hubbard knew what he was talking about. these skills, these abilities, these perceptions that they would get from the OT levels were a good thing. You know, yes, that would be true. That would be amazing to have those things. Good. So you're just, you know, kind of gradually getting them up to the point where you get them to agree that paying for these OT levels, even without knowing what's on them, would be the most amazing thing in the world and would give you all the superpowers you could ever want. And so the next step being, good, now let's figure out how to get them paid for. And then you start getting them on a payment plan, or you get them to go mortgage their house, or you figure out whatever needs to be done in order to get them to hand over the cash. So that was what I learned. I still, you know, sort of think with that, but I don't do sales particularly now. At least I don't try to. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I don't like particularly asking for money from people. If it's a cause I believe in, I will, you know, the words will come out of my mouth. Like when I, you know, sort of ask you guys to be Patreon supporters, I think that's kind of a sales thing. But in life and in the big wide world, I don't do sales work anymore because it's not something I enjoy. But I hope that clarifies or gives you some more information about how sales and how we were taught about that. If I left anything out or if there's still any unanswered questions on that, just let me know.